I'm gonna open this up. You tell me when you see it, and then I'm gonna start this.
Okay, hold on. It says this live event will begin in 4 minutes and 44 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's counting down, I guess.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that one right there that you did.
The trailer?
No. That screenshot, because you changed it up a little bit.
What screenshot? Oh, yeah. That's my new one I put together for us. It looks better.
Okay,
huh?
yeah, let's just stay with. Okay, I just got a notification that it's going. Hold on, we're live, bro. I like that one right there that you did. We're live, bro.
The trailer?
No. That screenshot, because you changed it up a little bit. AJ, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're live on YouTube right now, brother.
I know.
What happened to the intro? What the heck happened?
Yeah, I know. I saw that right now.
Can you hear me?
I don't know. Why does my thing look like I got a delay right now?
There's a delay, but we're live. We're live. I guess Nick's the intro, I guess.
I guess.
Why did it go live? Why did it go live?
I don't know. It was weird. It was weird. But,
well, we're live now. It's on. It's on right now on the YouTube channel. What's up, everybody? Goddamn technical difficulties.
Always a difficult.
God, man, we got to get this shit figured out, dude. All right. Well, we're live. Sunday.
I don't know.
We're live. I'm telling you right now, we're live right now. I'm watching it right now on my phone. It's behind, but what are you doing right now?
I have no idea.
No, but what are you doing? You look like you're clicking something. I mean, are you?
No, I'm right here.
No, I'm saying okay, but we're live.
I know we are. Sorry about that.
Okay, we're live. You look like you're trying to figure something out on the computer, but we're live. It's all right. Let's get it started. It is welcome everybody to Enter the Ring Live with Mighty Mike and
AJ Rage. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There's something weird. I get like double talk here right now.
You're getting double talk in your headphones?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're gonna have to maybe just put one off to the side. So all right, today is Sunday, November the 22nd, 2020. We have a couple topics on the show today. We three things we want to talk about today. Of course, we're going to get to the Canelo Callum Smith fight that was just officially announced this past week, but we're going to start this show off with saying, well, first off, AJ, how's your weekend going, man?
It's going good, bro. How's your weekend going? Trying to stay safe?
Yeah, just trying to stay safe and healthy. Boring. All I did was, I feel like I just cleaned and washed cars and shit all weekend. What about you?
Just
doing some music.
Get ready for Thanksgiving. How about yourself? Well, I'm coming to your house for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
if I don't get busted by the curfew and I got to run from the authorities.
Yeah, they're not going to enforce that. Yeah, just getting ready for Thanksgiving. I mean, what else is there really to do? It's just
not really much.
Buy a bunch of food and I don't know.
Get ready for the apocalypse.
Yeah, I'm on this new diet right now because in this inflammation I got going on. So I'm on this new diet, man. It's like I feel like I'm starving all the time now.
Really?
I'm down to 164 pounds, man. I'm ready to freaking drop down to 154 and get in the ring.
I'm 171, dude. I'm getting myself ready for hopefully this bare knuckles bout where I'm going to fight against this MMA guy. If everything gets through, we'll give you guys more detail. You'll see me back in the ring.
Yeah, let's do it.
Maybe Johnny will do some sparring with me, dude.
Yeah, you will for sure. We can get you some good sparring, man.
I need sparring, bro. I need some sparring, dude. I need to hit somebody. I really do. Just not you. I don't want you to hit me. So,
all right, let's get started. So, okay, what we're going to talk about first today, let's talk first about
about last night.
Yeah, well, sorry for the technical difficulties at the beginning.
Apologize.
I don't know what happened. We worked on getting this thing to start right on time, and for some reason it kicked on early.
You know, and it's been working great. It actually wasn't us. It was Zoom. Something happened with them. They had a thing that came across my screen just a minute ago that said that they were having technical difficulties. So,
anyways, whatever. We'll get it sorted out. Last night from the Staples Center in LA, you know, it looks like they've moved the fights from Microsoft Theater just across the street to Staples Center. There was 3 televised fights on Fox Sports 1 yesterday. The main event was Javier Fortuna from the Dominican Republic versus Lozada. Is that his name? Lozada.
Lozada.
Tough kid. I mean, you know, I believe he's got 40 wins, and I think he now has 5 losses. But you know, he lost most recently, or not most recently. He lost a close decision, but I think his one notable loss was a stoppage loss to Pedraza, Jose Pedraza. Yeah. But he also, I believe, upset Verdejo. Did he not?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. That was in Fantasy Springs.
Yeah, for Verdejo.
Yep.
So this fight was taking place at the 135-pound limit, and I gotta say, man, Fortuna he hadn't fought for over a year. Fortuna looked fantastic. I mean, he came right out there against that guy who had him by about 5-6 inches in height, and man, he was landing those wide shots, and he had him down in the first round, I believe, hurt multiple times. I think he kind of let him off the hook a little bit in the second, third, and fourth round, and then he ultimately ended up stopping him. I think, was it around the 5th or 6th round he stopped him? 6th round, maybe.
Yeah, I was begging the referee to stop the fight. And the thing about Fortuna is, you know, you're talking about a stellar amateur, but a guy who, if you go back to his fight against, I believe it was Maurice Hooker, he won that fight. I watched that fight, and it was a split decision loss that he lost. But Fortuna,
was it Hooker or Robert Easter?
Robert Easter, I apologize.
Yeah, Robert Easter. Yeah, I remember that fight. Yeah.
But Fortuna looked amazing. I mean, he put himself right in the mix. Everybody's talking about possible opponents for guys like Teofimo and Tank Davis. There's one right there. Do you agree?
Well, I'll tell you what, right away, you know, that would be a great fight for Tank Davis, because obviously it's a PBC promoted fighter and they wouldn't have any problem putting that together. You know, him crossing the street and going over and taking on Teofimo. I don't think Teofimo wants that challenge, especially with the names that are getting floated right now. I think most notable or probably leading the pack right now is the Australian guy, Kambosos. That fight still is like I ate a shit. It's like a shit sandwich, and I still can't get that taste out of my mouth. He did not win that fight against Lee Selby. In fact, I scored that fight. I think I had it 8-2 for Selby. You maybe could have given Kambosos 3 rounds, but he in no way, shape, or form even did enough to get a draw in that fight, and he ended up winning that fight. And one of the scorecards was completely out of left field. But
you know what really bothered me about that fight too is you look at a hardworking guy like Lee Selby, very likable person. I hear the guy is just a gentleman's gentleman, and once again he gets the short end of the stick, and it's so sad because you're seeing this so much. It's becoming such a trend. I know it's always been a trend in the past, but it's becoming more relevant these days with a lot of these big fights. And let's be honest, at this stage in Lee Selby's career, it's devastating. Where does he go from here? You know?
Yeah. I mean, how many times can you kick a guy? You know what I mean? Can you knock a guy down before he just, gets mentally fed up, and then which will in turn lead to the physically just giving up. So,
exactly.
I mean, I think in his heart of heart, I think he knows he won that fight. But I don't know. I mean, the fact that Kambosos is getting touted as the next opponent for Teofimo, possibly down in Australia, where they actually can have live audience and live attendance, it's financially it's a good move for Top Rank and Bob Arum. But the kid, I don't think that kid gets out of 2-3 rounds with Teofimo. I mean, I agree. I see another was a Mason Menard situation happening. The kid was way too easy to hit. He doesn't have any firepower at that weight. Doesn't have any power. He's just a flat-footed brawler who doesn't brawl very well.
That was actually the 3rd time I've seen him fight, and I got to be honest, all 3 times that I saw this guy fight, I thought to myself, this guy is just a shit-talking, overhyped, balloon
Yeah.
full of air. I was just like, God, could somebody just end this guy and just send him away? And he gets that win. And I figured Selby would take care of him. And this shit happens. And I'm just like, now this guy's going to get an opportunity against Teofimo. And it's sad because
easy payday and a free trip down under for Teofimo.
Well, Teofimo should honestly enjoy this easy defense because they're not going to get much easier after this. The list is going to get long and wide with guys like Tank Davis, Devin Haney, not to mention a lot of others. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there. You got Fortuna, who just got thrown into the mix now. There's a lot of guys out there that are just waiting to take a bite out of Teofimo. I think they saw a lot in that fight against Lomachenko that Teofimo doesn't want to admit. And the thing is that, he was pushed around. He was hit by a guy who's much smaller. Let's be honest. Was it the best Lomachenko? No, it wasn't.
No.
There was something wrong.
Yeah, there was something.
I don't think we're ever going to find out, but it is what it is.
So anyway, back to the recap of the fight last night. Like I said, and you said Fortuna wins by 6-round knockout. The referee jumped in. I thought he looked great, and I thought for a guy that he's got a great record. He's got a couple little blemishes on his record, but he looked sharp. He looked phenomenal. He looked like he was comfortable in there, even with the guy that was 6 foot tall. He looked like he had no problem at all in there.
He looked solid as hell. He really did. I mean,
I've seen him in a long time.
I was telling my wife last night too. I was like, how impressed I was with Fortuna, because I always knew, like Verdejo, I had high hopes for these guys.
Yeah.
And when Fortuna, after that fight, he had that layoff and he came back and, he looked somewhat okay, on his couple of fights coming back. But last night was his coming out party.
I agree. And let's see if the PBC, what was the main event? Let's see if they can get him something good, at least in that weight division. I don't think he should go any higher than 135, because I think at 135 he actually looked, he's not a guy that appears to have to like kill himself to make 135. He looked like he made it comfortably, kind of like Mikey Garcia making 147. He just he looks strong, but just there's even room there to even probably drop a few more pounds, 4 or 5 pounds.
He fills into that weight really nicely. I think he should be. Like I said, I think that's a problem with a lot of fighters. Rather than them get comfortable in the weight class where they're shining, they all of a sudden start looking for other weight classes. It's like, build a house first and then you can rent it. You know what I mean? So
that's a good analogy. Very good analogy.
Got to write that one down, dude.
Yeah. All right. So overall, kind of a quiet boxing weekend, but I got to say, I completely forgot those fights were on. And I think you called me about an hour before that, and I just saw it on my cable guide, and I said, oh, great. And granted, they were, consider, these aren't the fight that the casual boxing fans are going to watch, but of course you and me watched the entire card, and there were some pretty entertaining fights. Austin DeLay was fought earlier on the card, the kid out of Nashville. He's a solid guy at 135 pounds.
Yeah.
He's a solid fighter. He won a decision. That guy was tough that he beat Gallegos, but fights like this, this is what you need to do to continue to build these guys, on the weekend when they're not competing with, the pay-per-views and the big fights on whether it be the Zone or whether it be Top Rank on ESPN. PBC kind of had this weekend to themselves, with their only competition being the UFC fight, which I don't even know. I guess that was a pay-per-view. So hopefully the numbers come back and enough people tuned in, after watching college football, to get these guys a look, not only Fortuna, but Austin DeLay as well. So I guess that's all I got to say about that. Anything closing on that fight, bro?
No, I think I'm the same. I'm on the same point as you are. We need some challenges. Everybody keeps talking about how bright 135 is. I don't see it. There are some bright points to it, but there's a lot of gaps. So, the levels kind of go from here and then jump up to here and then kind of steady off. So, we'll see. Right now, it's the same situation going on in 140. There's a lot of guys I think that could be a definite challenge for guys like Terrence Crawford, but they're just kind of getting pushed off to the side right now because they're too busy trying to match champion against champion and a retired guy who was a superstar with another guy. And that's just got to stop,
Yeah. So let's jump into the fight that was just officially announced this past week. Finally, we're going to have Canelo's going to fight in 2020. And I think he's probably just been staying busy in the gym, just working every day, probably for the entire year. Like most of these world-class fighters do. He's going to go ahead and, I believe, unify, correct? Because is Callum Smith a belt holder as well?
Yes, he is. They both
are. Oh no. Well, let me rephrase that. So Callum Smith is the belt holder in this one. Canelo doesn't have a belt
because Canelo vacated his 168 when he moved up to fight Kovalev at light heavyweight.
Okay, so this will be for Callum Smith's WBA super middleweight title. It's going to take place on December the 19th, which is just right around the corner, but about 4 weeks from today, or from last night, and at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. I know there was talk about it either being at Arlington at the stadium there in Dallas, or San Antonio. I think San Antonio is a much better venue because with a short amount of time to promote the fight and actually, sell tickets. Not that Canelo couldn't put butts in the seats, but I think it's just from a business standpoint, it makes more sense to have it in San Antonio. Dallas is going to have the Errol-Spence-Danny Garcia fight in 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks from today. So, you don't want to oversaturate that market, because what you don't want to do is you don't want people to go, well, I only have this amount of money for my boxing this quarter, this month. Do I go see Spence Garcia or do I wait 2 more weeks and then go see Canelo?
Now, I have a question, bro. Are they going to allow fans to be actually at the fight using social distancing?
They are. They haven't disclosed the amount of fans, but they are going to have fans there. If you've been watching college football, which I do, I watch college football. I don't watch the NFL, but I watch college. And some of the West Coast teams, some teams are not having any fans at all. And then it's just ridiculous. And then some of those
kind of like playing a semi-pro game back in the day, no fans.
or just a handful.
Yeah.
So there is going to be fans in attendance at the Garcia Spence fight, and also at the Canelo Callum Smith fight, which is why Texas is on the front runner right now to get these live boxing, these fights. And if you look 60 days ago, we probably thought, well, we were pretty close to opening back up out here, maybe getting some fights at Staples or wherever, even the outdoor stadium in Carson, the former Home Depot Center. Well, based on the lockdowns that were just implemented and everything's regressing and everything around here is back to, I guess, the color, the tier purple, which is like the heightened state for COVID. Hey, Texas and Florida and these states are going to be like, hey, no problem. Bring it our way. No problem.
Well, I think that's why, like with Australia, because I know for the motion picture industry, and your wife would know this, she worked for the motion picture industry, they do a lot of a lot of shoots in Australia just based on the pricing. If they're allowing a gate, it's going to be a profitable thing for things like Top Rank and PBC. So I think we're going to see more fights possibly in Australia, because Australia's got more control on it right now. But the COVID thing, like I said, I mean, it's tough. I don't want to be one of these people out here telling people don't wear masks, don't believe the hype, that kind of stuff, but something just doesn't sit well with me, because, you're talking about people being able to go back to Disneyland. You're letting people go to basketball games, but you won't let people eat Thanksgiving with their family. So there's something wrong there, man. It just started really bothering me.
Well, yeah. I mean, Disney World back in Orlando's been open, right? They've been open a couple months now. And I haven't really seen a spike, at least on the news. There hasn't been anything notable, any kind of notable spike in cases or deaths or what. But then again, I don't live in Florida, so I don't know what the local media is feeding them there. But I know here on the West Coast, it's all about fear. And I was talking to Neil the other day, and he said, and you said the same thing to me. We were talking yesterday. Nothing spreads faster than fear.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
It's hurting the sport, though. It's not just hurting. It's taking away opportunities.
For the young fighters too.
The young fighters, guys like Rene Moreno, who, by the way, we're going to start a segment probably on our next show on Monday. We're going to talk to kind of, not to get off the subject, but we're going to do a thing called New Faces, where we're going to basically spotlight a rising star. And we're going to be talking about Rene the Azteca Moreno.
El Azteca, yeah.
Very exciting fighter that's trained by the famed trainer, Robert Alcazar. So but we'll get more into that our next show. But like you said, it's taking away opportunities from young fighters, veteran fighters. We know from our relationships with boxers, people think that just because a guy's somewhat of a household name, that he's got this big amount of money in the bank. And when you're only fighting one fight, maybe a year, sometimes one fight every year and a half.
Yeah.
It's essential for them to get back in the ring. I mean, they got costs.
They do. They got to survive, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hurting a lot of sports. It's taking away opportunities from kids in college football right now that aren't getting an opportunity where their schools have been closed down. And
well, look at the out here in the West Coast, you know, we have multiple top 10 teams in nationwide, high school teams that aren't playing. Mater Dei, St. John Bosco, Corona Centennial, Long Beach Poly. These Bishop Amat. These kids basically are not playing football. They're sitting and watching the rest of the country play football. I mean, especially if you're a senior and you're coming off of a hot junior year and you
just do it away. I know about 4 guys that I know personally where my daughter goes to school over at Bishop Amat.
They probably relocated.
Well, my daughter had to put her track season got scrapped.
Yeah.
And the thing is that these guys were right on the cusp of getting big scholarships to some really good schools. They just had to kind of show a little bit of sustainability going to their senior year. Who knows what's going to happen at this point?
Yeah. Yeah, because unlike college, where college is granting these kids an extra year of eligibility, right? But what does that mean if you're a kid? If you're a kid there and you're on scholarship or you're a walk-on and you're paying money to go to school, it's not so easy just to add another year to your you know what I mean, to your life plan. To stay in university for another year. It doesn't make any sense. But
yeah, and not to go off on a tangent on this whole situation. I mean, like I look at it because it makes me sad, you know, when I look at my daughter and what your daughters have gone through and my son. I mean, the fact, especially my daughter, you know, being a senior, this is her year to shine. And she's not going to have a prom. She's not going to be able to do senior ditch day. She's not going to be able to rule the school. And it sucks, you know, because I mean, I feel so bad for her.
I know.
You know, and no matter what I try to give her, I don't have a whole lot of options, you know, out there.
You said senior ditch day, and I don't think I ever had a senior ditch day because I think I ditched it at least once a week anyway.
Yeah, it was like senior ditch day for me every other day. You know, one year I think I probably went to school maybe 4 times the entire year. Who knows? Sorry, Dad. All right, let's get back on. So let's talk about
So Canelo Smith, December 19th, San Antonio. We went off on a tangent. That's right, but I think it was entertaining anyway.
It's all right. What we got to do? Hey, you know, we got to mix a little bit of the real world in there. Can't all be about boxing, man.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So we're going to do a segment here. We're going to call Counterpunch. What we're going to do here is my brother's going to go ahead and
well, hold on. We just glossed over Canelo Smith entirely.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's right.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about. Okay, I mean, the easiest thing would just to be say, oh, who do you think is going to win this fight and how? Let's talk a little bit about how Callum Smith got here and why he was selected. I think. Okay. I'll let you start.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that what happened with Canelo and DAZN and with his relationship with Oscar De La Hoya. There was word, I would say probably about a half a year ago, about Callum Smith facing Canelo at the time. Callum Smith said that he didn't think that, I think it was like 3.5 months wasn't going to be long enough for him to be prepared for Canelo. And I think this was something that stayed on the desk and everybody was kind of looking at it. And there just wasn't a lot of options out there. And I think Callum Smith, based on his performance against John Ryder, he figured cash out with Canelo or end up running into another guy that's like John Ryder that this time he doesn't get out of the fight.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think what I heard is the 2 names getting kicked around were Caleb Plant and, of course, Callum Smith. Now,
Caleb Plant's nowhere in hell going to step in the ring with Canelo-Alverez. He won't do it.
Well,
Caleb Plant's looking for another, what's that guy's name? Butts or whatever. He's looking for another one of those guys.
Well, no, here's the thing. I think ultimately what it came down to is they think that Callum Smith is definitely, I guess, more vulnerable at this point than Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant is a good boxer. I mean, he doesn't really have any power, but he is a good boxer and he's slick and he can make it look bad. Callum Smith, based off of his last performance,
that's horrible.
He looked really bad. Now he's tall. He's 6'3". I mean, this is obviously the tallest guy Canelo's ever going to be in the ring with, at least from a professional standpoint. But the one name that's distinctly absent, or that's how do I say it? That's conspicuously absent from that.
Do the drum roll. Brrr. Here it goes. What is it?
David Benavidez.
You got it.
Who was clamoring for the fight. He went on Instagram after the fight and actually threw a little bit of shade at both Canelo and his trainer and not really at Callum Smith, because it's not Callum Smith's fight. Callum Smith's, you know, it's like hitting the lotto getting the Canelo fight. But, you know, and you've been a very strong proponent for David Benavidez for a long time, as I have, not quite as much as you, but that's a fight I think Canelo doesn't want to go anywhere near.
No. And I'll be honest with you, I think very highly of Canelo and his abilities. I'm not talking about his character or his promotional connections, but he's a guy, like I said the other day, he's a gym rat. He's like how you are. He's always in the gym. He's always working. That's why when you see Canelo, he's always working on new things. So he's a fighter that's evolving. And in the situation with David Benavidez, it doesn't matter what Canelo learns or what he acquires or whatever what aspect of his boxing abilities he extends. You can't get past the fact that David Benavidez is the complete package. He's a guy who's got punch, he can box, he's got sheer size and strength. And it's like Canelo's gonna be fighting against a wall. And you can't get through that wall. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I just did something.
No problem.
No, you're right. David Benavidez, I think, is just a little bit too much for Canelo to bite off. And like you said, I'm going to reiterate that. It's not a knock on Canelo. I mean, you can't expect this guy to go out there and want to fight a killer like that because he's a killer. He's a guy that's got size, power, speed.
Well, that's why I thought it was comical when people were talking about that David Benavidez would come up short against a guy like Caleb Plant. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Caleb.
Caleb Plant. I mean, it's just like these two guys. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Anybody that's in the boxing world knows it's a small community.
Caleb Plant will make it competitive for the first few rounds. He'll move and he'll box and he'll whatever. But once David Benavidez catches him, once he slows down and once he gets to him, the fight's over. It's very simple. The fight's over. Caleb
he'll make it interesting by running. I mean, he's not gonna engage this beast. I'll tell you.
No. He's gonna box and move for maybe a good 2 to 4 rounds. Maybe. But then once David, gets warmed up and puts his foot on the gas, then it's just a matter of time. Well,
unfortunately, in the situation with Plant, he's in a division right now, and if he looks one division up or one division down, it's not just about your boxing skill; it's power. At some point, you can't just expect to elude the fighter and the opponent that's coming at you and stuff. At some point, you got to have something that's going to stop him in their tracks, and he just doesn't possess that kind of power. And that's going to be a problem stepping up to light heavyweight or dropping down to middleweight or staying where he's at 168.
Yeah, agreed. Because, I mean, but look, I will say this: Caleb Plant is a good boxer, though. He's a slick boxer. He knows what he's doing in there.
Oh, he's a very well school fighter.
His physical limitations are going to catch up to him.
Absolutely,
that's what it's going to come down to.
And we really don't know what his durability is. Let's be honest; he hasn't really been. And I use this on a lot of fighters right now. I know people might say it's a knock, but he hasn't been in all out war. He hasn't been in a situation where he's been hit by a guy who's a big puncher. Come on, let's look at all you have to do is go to Boxing Rec. If you don't believe me, people, pull up his name and look at the fighters and look at their KO ratio compared to their victory ratio. It's ridiculous. It's no different than what Terrence Crawford has done and amongst others and stuff. They get in there with guys that just don't have any punch, and there's not a whole lot of threat there.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So obviously we digressed a bit, but Callum Smith, in recent memory, his best performance in my mind in recent memory was when he beat Grove in the finals of the World Series of whatever, the Super Six or World Series of Boxing, not Super Six, the World Series of Boxing. I actually was shocked. I was going for Groves in that fight. And now, granted, I mean, Groves looked good up until that point, had a couple tough fights getting to the finals, but Callum Smith really kind of had his way with George Groves. Now, was it all Callum Smith, or was it just the fact that the miles, on the odometer on George Groves just added up, and he had just been in some tough fights with some tough guys, and it just, he pretty much just shot his load. There wasn't much left of George Groves by the time he got to that fight.
Yeah, I think Groves is just a shot fighter, to be honest with you, bro. He hadn't looked good in his last few performances before that and stuff. And
well, he hasn't fought since. I mean, he pretty much that was.
Oh no, I'm talking about before he fought against Callum.
Well, but he had won his way into the Super Six, into the World Series of Boxing finals. He was looking pretty good. There was one fight he fought. Let me think.
Chris Eubanks. It was Chris Eubanks.
Yeah, when he beat. That's right. When he beat.
But
Eubanks.
even in the victory over Eubanks was so sloppy and ran out of gas so early in that fight. It just became a hug fest. It was just a sloppy performance on both their ends. And even his fight before that against Cox, he just, he went on this list where he was fighting these nobodies and stuff for a while. I mean, his, up to that point, I mean, you got to go back to when he lost to Badu Jack, so.
Yeah. Okay. So needless to say, I think we both feel that Canelo's going to probably finish this fight inside the distance. I mean, it's kind of early to make a prediction, I guess, but there's nothing that I need to see in training videos or otherwise that's going to make me really give Callum Smith much of a chance. His best chance really is to just try to box for the first several rounds and just use that height and that advantage. Yeah. He's not very fleet-footed though. He's flat-footed, as are both his brothers were. They're tough guys. But I think, matter of fact, I think Liam's the toughest of the three. Liam is a tough guy.
Liam's been in there with a lot of tough guys.
Yeah, he's been in there with Canelo. He's been in there with Munguia. He's been in there with who else? Well, I mean, just Canelo and Munguia alone. I mean, he took a lot of shots from Munguia and finished the fight. But I'm guessing Canelo gets him out of there somewhere between. I was gonna say like 6 and 8. I'm gonna say like between 5 and 7. I think Canelo's gonna figure him out pretty quick, and I think the fact that he's going to be in hostile territory. This is not a fight in the UK where he's got the fans behind him. I think Callum Smith's going to be coming over here, and he's really going to the moment is going to get to him. And I really think I see Canelo stopping him anywhere from 5 to 7 rounds.
Yeah, I agree.
It could go a little longer. Wouldn't surprise me, but I just don't see there's any way Callum Smith wins this fight. I think Canelo knows it. And like you said, Canelo's at a point in his career where he's just firing on all cylinders right now. And kudos to him. He could have really sat through Thanksgiving and Christmas and just New Year's and just kind of sat back and go, it's not that he needs the money. He could have said, I'll just wait till 2021. No, I like that he wants to get in there and fight.
Well, I think what I like about this matchup in a sense where once again it's Canelo fighting against a much bigger guy. So there's going to be that air of vulnerability there. Can Callum Smith keep Canelo on the end of his jab at 6'3" compared to Canelo's 5'8"? It's possible. But the problem is the way Canelo trains, and he's learned how to break down these bigger fighters, a la Sergey Kovalev. So if you were to take Callum Smith and Sergey Kovalev, you say, who's the more durable fighter? Obviously, the Crusher is the more durable fighter. And if Canelo was able to figure that puzzle out, a guy who actually's got a good jab and knows how to keep distance, Callum Smith, go back on the John Ryder fight. John Ryder's a little taller than Canelo. He doesn't fight like a tall fighter. And it's an unfortunate thing.
Very well said. I thought the same thing. I watched the highlights of that fight. I remember watching it when it happened, but going back and refreshing, he does not fight like a tall fighter.
Does not fight like a tall fighter.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the disadvantage against a guy like Canelo. Canelo throws with such pinpoint accuracy. He hasn't shown that he is vulnerable, susceptible to being hurt really by anybody. So, I mean, I think honestly, there's no such thing as an easy night. There's always that air of something can happen. But I'm going to agree with you. I think this fight ends. I think it ends in devastating fashion. I think this is going to be a Lamont Kirkland situation where Callum Smith's going to end up on his back for the 10 count. I don't even think it's going to be a stoppage.
You mean James Kirkland?
I'm sorry, James Kirkland. My apologies.
Because I'm like Lamont. He didn't. I'm like.
Yeah, I'm taking a lot of punches and taking a lot of hits on the field.
Okay, so
but I'm saying it's going to be a highlight reel. I think it's going to be one of those, and it's really.
I think you're right. It could end with it's going to make the sports. It's going to make the highlight reel on sports Saturday night following the college highlights. And look at this, in San Antonio, Texas.
You know what? You made a good point though, bro. You were talking about the fact that Canelo's doing this during a very tough time in this country, and the thing is, I really wish.
I respect him.
I really wish that true boxing fans, people that truly love this sport and know how this sport and other aspects of this world are in such jeopardy right now with what's going on, this control factor. And I'm going to tell you something right now. In the world where there's always a debate about number one, pound for pound, we have a great fighter who's out there doing what he's done. His only loss is to the person who acclaimed themselves the best ever. So there's really no argument. And so rather than bash this guy and try to find excuses why guys like maybe Terrence Crawford or anybody else should be the best in boxing. Let's be honest. The best in boxing right now is Canelo-Alverez. He's the only one who's out there taking the risk. That's a champion when you take the risk.
It's like we said last week when we were recapping and we talked about the top 10. We said it's not just what you've done, it's what you're doing and what you're aspiring to do. I mean, this is a 6'3" undefeated super middleweight.
Yeah.
Undefeated super middleweight.
Nobody knows what can happen. Canelo can go in there. All of a sudden, Callum Smith can have the fight of his life and make Canelo look small and vulnerable.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what do they always say? They say a good big man beats a good small man. Well, in this case, you've got a good big man and a great, not small man, but smaller man. He's not a small man, but he's a smaller man. So, I mean, hey, I agree with you. I think if he wins this fight in devastating fashion, I think this just solidifies his spot atop the pound for pound rankings, the mythical pound for pound rankings. And I don't think anybody can argue with that. I mean, it's basically these guys. It's like, how do I say it? It's like if you're playing a game or something, and you're throwing horseshoes or playing darts or something. You might throw a double 20, but then the guy who's got the last shot, hey, he could do a triple, and he does. Well, you had Teofimo pull the upset. And then he was talking, all the hype was on him. And, is he pound for pound? And then Terrence Crawford, is he pound for pound? Well, then Canelo's going to come along right before the end of 2020 and stamp his place and just, like I said, just solidify that, hey, I'm the man in boxing. And I think he is. And if you know me over the years, I've never been a Canelo fanboy. I mean, I rooted against him multiple times. But I respect what the man is doing, and is aspiring to do. So,
well, I think this fight, I think a lot of people are maybe forgetting that they're getting back on the sense that there can be an air of vulnerability there. Let's be honest. Canelo has been in some tough fights. His fights with Triple G, his fights with Errol Lara, amongst others. These were tough fights. Even the Kobalov fight had its moments of brutality. But if you go back in history a little bit, a guy who kind of reminds me of Canelo in his run and his skill was Miguel Cotto. And Miguel Cotto stepped into the ring with Austin Trout, who was supposed to be a guy that he could beat. But Trout had the physical size and reach. And you know what? He fought like a tall fighter that night, and he completely dominated Miguel Cotto. So there's always that chance. Don't just think that Canelo's going to go in there and this is going to be whatever. I mean, but if you really look at who's working the hardest and who really wants it, do you really think Callum Smith wants this fight? No. Do you think he's being forced, probably his hands being forced by his banner? Basically saying that, hey, you know what? You didn't look so great against John Ryder. We better cash out now because you never know. It's a lotto pick. You might end up beating this guy, and you put yourself right on the map.
Very, very well said. Now let's play hypotheticals here. Let's say let's say this fight goes the distance, and like you said, Callum Smith fights tall and basically takes all of the failures, and I don't want to say failures, man, that's not the right word, but all the disappointments that the Smiths family has had over the years in some close fights, whether it be the other brothers, Liam, what's the other brother's name? The one that fought Andre Ward? Paul Smith. Paul Smith, Liam Smith. Maybe he pulls off what I would consider a major upset, and he wins the decision, maybe even a close decision. Well, what does that say? What does that do for Canelo? Do you say, well, maybe he just needs to stay at 160, or well,
it's going to give him options. You see, yeah. I think you touched on a great point, bro. In a fight like this, Canelo's got everything really to lose in a sense. But in reality, even though he's the marquee fighter, the guy who should come in there and win, and it'd be an epic upset if he lost, Callum Smith is the fighter who should win based on his sheer size and being natural for the weight class. Canelo will have options. They could then say at that point, well, you know what? Maybe Canelo bit off a little bit more than he could chew. Maybe he just isn't natural at this weight. So have options to drop down the middleweight or possibly even 154, where Callum Smith doesn't have those options. If he loses to Canelo-Alverez, what does he do? He reboots at 168, or does he venture up to 175? There's not a whole lot of options.
And based on what I've seen of him at 168, I don't think 175 is somewhere he
wants
with
the monsters up there.
Like it better be Evan and whatnot. But then again, you think yourself, well, I mean, how does this guy? Does he, I never really watched the weigh-ins for Callum Smith's fights. Does he look drawn? Does he look dehydrated?
I think he makes the weight pretty well, bro.
So he makes the weight pretty well.
He makes the weight pretty well. If you look at his frame, he's got skinny legs. He's just I mean, they talk about his power, but I don't really see it. I mean, he caught John Ryder with some really,
John Ryder landed the more telling punches in that fight. I
go back and watch John Ryder's fight against Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe Saunders made John Ryder look like an amateur. So that's got to tell you right there. And that's a guy who's kind of been forgotten. We'll kind of talk about that maybe on the next show. But Billy Joe Saunders, when they were talking about Canelo, Billy Joe Saunders, that was a fight where I legitimately said it. You said it too, bro. Billy Joe Saunders could win this fight.
Yeah, well, now Billy Joe's going to fight who? Martin Murray, which I don't understand why Martin Murray's even.
I didn't even think he was fighting.
Yeah, but that fight's coming up in a couple weeks. So,
so we got about 10 minutes here, bro. You want to talk a little bit briefly about the upcoming fight between Errol Spence and Danny Garcia?
Oh, we got 10 minutes here? Oh, I thought we had a little longer. Yeah, but we could jump right into that. So, okay, so let's jump right into the fight that's happening 2 weeks from this weekend, 13 days from today. Barring any, last minute, COVID restrictions or any, God forbid, either one of the fighters or anybody in their team testing positive. I'm hoping that they're staying, safe and doing the right thing. Danny Garcia is challenging Errol Spence for both belts. Yeah. So you have the unified champion, Errol-Spence-Jr., taking on top, in my opinion, top 5 welterweight in the world, Danny Garcia. 2 losses on his record, 2 hard-fought close decisions, one to Sean Porter, one to Keith Thurman, and both multiple time world champions as well. So it's like a who's who, in this division right here, all these fights. I don't know. I think there's a new segment you want to talk about, a way we want to break this down.
So we're going to break it down real quick. So my brother Mike's going to give some really quick points on the positives of Errol Spence. Okay. And I'm going to give the positives on Danny Garcia. He's going to give the negatives on Danny Garcia, and I'm going to give the negatives on Errol Spence. So why don't you go ahead and kick it off, bro?
Okay. So I'll do the positives right now for what I feel for Errol-Spence-Jr. Positives are, I guess, I'll narrow it down to maybe like 2 or 3, but the first positive I see is that determination. I think Errol Spence is a determined fighter. I think he fights with determination, and from the training footage I've seen, he trains with determination. He's determined to be, what does he call it? He wants to clean out the division, and then he aspires to actually go up to 160 and fight Canelo-Alverez. He's even said it just this past week. So he's determined. That's number 1. Number 2 would be his work rate. That's a positive thing for him, his work rate. I think if you look at Errol Spence fights, he doesn't take rounds off. He fights round 1 almost the same way as he fights round 12. And in the course of 1 to 12, if he gets you out of there, he gets you out of there. So that's another positive. The third positive thing I think would be based on the car accident. I think he's kind of refocused and he's kind of reprioritized his life. And he said he moved out of the city. He moved out of Dallas. Apparently he bought a big ranch somewhere out in the country, and he's spending a lot of time just in, whether he's not training, he's just spending a lot of time on a ranch with horses. And he said with cows and riding horses and just, so I think that shows, and he's a young guy too. Errol Spence, he's a young guy. I know he just had his 3rd child. He has a son now. And I think he's just refocused and put his priorities, his life priorities, back in order. So those are the 3 things I think that are positives for Errol Spence. Why I personally I think he's going to win this fight. But you want to talk about the positives for Danny, or do you want me to my negatives for?
Yeah, go ahead and give me. Let me talk about some positives for Danny Garcia real quick.
Okay.
So for Danny Garcia, on the 3 things, I think one of them is going to be legitimizing who he is in the division. This is a guy, I see it in Danny's face. I think Danny feels that he's really been overlooked. He's never been discussed, even with all of his accomplishments and the way that he won the title, being a 2-time champion. He's never been discussed as a member of the elite pound for pound top 10 in the world.
So he wants his respect then, basically.
He wants his respect. I think Danny's really knowing that, listen, I don't need my dad to talk for me. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to do what I have to do and stuff. So I mean, when a fighter is seeking respect, there's that determination. You can see it in Danny. Danny really feels insulted. He feels like he's being treated kind of like how Kell Brook was treated going into the Crawford fight. But Kell Brook, there was reason to treat him that way. There's no reason to look at Danny Garcia like he's damaged goods. He's a young guy. He's a guy that's never taken a beating. The guy's never been dropped. His 2 fights were both disputed losses against both Sean Porter and Keith Thurman. And if Danny made the adjustments that I've seen in his recent fights, Errol Spence might have some problems. Now, the one thing, and I'm only going to go 2. I'm not even going to go 3 like you. And that's the no-look left hook. When it comes to the no-look left hook from Danny Garcia, I don't even think Danny knows he throws it. And if Danny doesn't know he's throwing it, Errol's not going to see it. And let's be honest. Let's go back and look at Errol Spence's fight against Sean Porter. Fight of the year, and I completely agree. An amazing fight. But Errol took some big punches in that fight. And, and the thing is that, Errol's shown a little bit of vulnerability of being rocked a little bit, not severely hurt. But then again, can you think of one fighter who's ever, and Danny Garcia's been in there with some bombers that has really dented that Garcia machine?
No, I mean, he caught a couple of tough blows from Keith Thurman. Nothing that I would say really hurt him, but maybe just blunted his attack for the moment for a split second. But yeah, Danny Garcia's got a great chin. There's no doubt about that. He's got a great chin.
No, he really does. So why don't you go ahead and give me the negatives on Danny, bro?
Well, let me give you the negatives on Errol Spence first, and then I'll give you my negatives on Danny.
Actually, I was going to do the negatives on Errol Spence, and you're going to do the negatives on Danny.
Okay, you do the negatives on Errol Spence.
Yeah. Okay, for my negatives on Errol Spence is the number one thing I think that most people are going to want to know is what Errol Spence is this? Now Errol Spence hasn't had a return fight since his devastating accident in which he could have lost his life, and it was a devastating accident. So nobody really knows. You can look great in the gym. I've seen a million fighters look great in the gym, but when it comes to the fight, it's a whole nother story. We don't know how these lasting effects are going to affect Errol Spence. Yeah. We don't know how the ring rust is going to affect Errol Spence going into this fight. Okay. Another negative that I see from Errol is Errol has a tendency to kind of leave himself out to dry. He did it a lot against Sean Porter. He's one of those fighters that sometimes will throw a punch and sit back and admire it. Against a guy like Danny Garcia, who's a pretty good counterpuncher and has worked on his physical stature and his speed, it could be a problem for Errol. And Errol's not the most fleet of foot guy. Either is Danny Garcia. But Errol's going to look to engage. He's that kind of a fighter. And when it comes down to a dogfight, nobody's going to be more willing to want to, step up to that mantle than Danny Garcia. So I think those are the things that I see that might be a shortcoming for Errol Spence.
Okay. Well, okay. So if I had to find some shortcomings or negatives about Danny Garcia, the first thing I would say probably is, I would say it's probably his style of fighting. And when I say he's a great fighter, but what I say his style of fighting is Danny is kind of flat footed. I'm not saying he can't. He's got good footwork, but he's not a boxer. He's not a mover. He's not a guy that Errol's going to have to go look for. Mm-hmm. He fights a lot like, believe it or not, if you look at their footwork, he fights a lot like Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia's got good footwork, but he's not exactly a mover, a boxer, in and out, side to side type of guy, and neither is Danny Garcia. So that's where I think Errol's not going to have to look far for him. He's going to be there, like you said, and he'll engage Errol. And there's no doubt in my mind that Danny does possess a good chin, and he does have a good straight right as well as the left hook. But what I think his downfall in this fight is going to be is he's going to stand there, and when it's time, if he does catch a good shot by Errol, if he does feel at times maybe a little bit overwhelmed by Errol's work rate, does he know how to fight on the back foot? I don't think he does. Danny Garcia is a come forward kind of guy. He's not a brawler, but he stands there. Yeah. He's really like not really a boxer puncher, and I don't want to say he's a brawler. He's somewhere in between.
I think we could kind of push that, and not to cut you off, bro, but same situation with Errol Spence. He showed that vulnerability against Sean Porter when Sean Porter was aggressive coming at him. Errol didn't have a whole lot of answers.
Well, that leads to my second thing. Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
Why Danny Garcia? His best chance to win this fight, because the best, as far as we've all seen, and I think anybody would disagree with this, the best opponent we've seen fight Errol Spence is Sean Porter, meaning Sean Porter gave him some tough rounds. And with the exception of the knockdown in the 11th round, or I think it was a pretty close fight. That might have clinched it for Errol, but there's no doubt that Danny's a much sharper puncher than Sean Porter. Sean Porter's a strong guy, but he's not a sharp puncher. He wings wild shots. I mean, now, will Danny Garcia be able to bully Errol Spence the way Sean Porter did? And that's my second thing is when it's time for him to have to kind of be a bully, does he have the physical strength to bully like Sean? Because Sean Porter, that apparently as an amateur used to fight at like the middleweight division or something. He was big. I mean, he's not a tall guy, but he's thick and strong. I just don't know if Garcia can, can really emulate that bullying style, which is the only style that I think will give Errol Spence problems. Because up to this point, we have seen nobody else really give him problems. Kell Brook was doing a good job of winning the fight, but Kell Brook as well was physically strong. They would tie up, but Kell Brook also was. He's not a mover. Kell Brook was like right in front of your face and kind of fight. Now, I mean, it's funny now that I say that, and I think about it, I can kind of see the fight kind of playing out the way the Kell Brook Errol Spence fight, with you just of course superimpose, put Danny Garcia in Kell Brook's spot where he could give Errol some trouble. But I think Errol's work rate and everything, I think ultimately is just going to overcome Danny. Not saying he's going to knock him out, but I think he kind of pulls away late. And we've seen Danny kind of let his foot off the gas a little bit towards the middle and late rounds when he fought Thurman, and then he tried to make a bit of a comeback. Even when he fought Zab Judah, he had Zab Judah. He was winning most of those early rounds, and then he kind of, I don't know if he got winded or what, but Zab Judah kind of came on tough that second half of the fight, and he ended up still losing a decision, but he made it much closer than we all thought it was going to be. So yeah, that's what I think.
No, those are great points, and I think the one thing that I think why I'm leaning towards Danny, and we're going to differ on this fight, where I'm kind of leaning towards Danny on this fight is going to go back to the fact that I think that Danny feels he's been disrespected, but I think Danny's faced a better opposition. Danny's been in the dogfights with better fighters.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that Danny's got a better resume than
you go back to when he fought against Lucas Matisse. Matisse was a monster, and Danny handled him. So whenever it seems like every time Danny's coming in these fights, let's be honest, that they're always looking at his shortcomings, and for some reason he always found a way to win. And I was never a big fan of Danny Garcia. I was always rooting against him, but it's just at some point you have to start respecting this guy. And when do we start respecting him? And I think Danny's going to try to make a point to let everybody know that, hey, I am the guy in the welterweight division that you're not going to be able to look past anymore. Because if he beats Errol Spence, that whole fantasy matchup between him and Crawford and all this stuff goes away.
Yeah.
And this opens up a whole new bed of opportunities where Danny Garcia will be more than willing to step back in the ring for a rematch against guys like Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, amongst others. I mean, I look forward to it.
Well, you know what? I hate to say this, but for the first time in his career, probably, even when he was the unified champion, like you say, he didn't really get the respect he deserved. A lot of that probably had to do with the fact that, his dad was really rubbing people the wrong way, running off at the mouth, whatever, at the time, was probably the biggest trash talker in boxing, who wasn't actually in the ring. Teofimo's dad has far surpassed him in his level of disrespect and delusional. What is there a word for that? I don't know, whatever. Anyways, but I think this will put Danny in the driver's seat, and he probably says, hey, I'd like to sit on the throne and be like, hey, I'm going to call the shots now, because he's really never been able to call the shots.
No, he never has.
He's kind of really had he's had some big fights, but he's never been able to be in that position. Even as the undisputed champion at 140, at that moment when he moved up to 147, let's face it, the 140 division kind of was a little bit lacking at that time. This was a few years back. It really didn't have the fight, because if it did have the fighters that are there now, Danny might have stuck around.
Yeah, and not only that, I think the other thing about Danny Garcia too is the fact that he's seeking to be great in a sense, because I mean, even if you look at some of the fights in his title defenses, this guy always fought in somebody else's backyard. So that right there shows you that there was no respect even from his own promotion. So I mean, Danny was always willing to do that. And the thing is that
he's fought out here in LA. As a matter of fact, his fight against Granados was here.
His dad was always, we're going a little over, but it's okay. We're not on a time schedule. But his dad, Angel, who I was not a big fan of, but I think Angel kind of, his views kind of changed a little bit. Maybe Danny had a talk with him. Angel got sick there for a while. But I liked what Angel said in a recent interview. He basically said that, listen, Danny understands for the first time in his life exactly where he is. And he understands that they're never going to hand him something. Danny has fought for every single thing he's ever gotten. And he will fight again, because at the end of the day, Errol Spence, they're already acclaiming, the heir apparent, the golden child, the top welterweight in the world. But like Angel said, it's one thing to say it, and you could start to believe it when their promotions feed into it in social media. But if you really look at who he's fought and his performances, has he really deserved it? Because that's here right now. Based on it, if you crown the champion based on sheer effort and performances, Danny Garcia will be rated above Errol Spence right now.
Well, I mean, I'll agree with you that Danny has the deeper resume. And even though he's lost two of those close fights with Thurman and Porter, like you said, both fights really could have went the other way. I think the Porter fight was much closer than I thought Thurman edged it by a round or two pretty clearly. But there's no doubt Danny's got a better resume than Errol Spence. And he's got more fights. What is he got? 36 wins, I believe.
Yes.
With the two decision losses, 28 knockouts, 28 knockouts. The way he looked against Granados, and even though Granados really, in my opinion, is not a full-fledged 147 pounder, but the way he fought that fight, though, just patient and just calculating. And against the guy who fought Sean Porter, if I'm right, and went the distance with Sean Porter. Am I right? In Granados?
Correct. Yes.
Fought Sean Porter. And the way Danny Garcia that fought, about a year ago here in LA, that Danny Garcia right there, that's a tough guy to beat right there. And if that Danny Garcia shows up on the 5th of December, then Errol Spence is going to have a tough time. And like you said, anything could happen. But I'm looking forward to that weekend. It's, they're putting together a pretty good undercard. I know that I think there's already 6 or 7 fights confirmed for that card. It's a pay-per-view.
It's going to be, I think it's, like I said, it's another really, really, really good matchup. I mean, people could say that, like I said, we've been in these troubled times, but boxing, I think, has really stepped above other sports and put on some really good fights this year. Obviously they haven't all turned out the way we wanted them to turn out, but for the most part, boxing is keeping itself exactly where it needs to be. And that's, the on top. But the thing is, getting back on Danny Garcia and Errol Spence, there's going to be a lot of questions answered, I think, on this fight. Not just, this is going to see where Errol Spence is back as far as his level as a fighter. I still see something kind of a myth with Errol right now. And I noticed it in a recent workout.
Like something not right?
Yeah, something not right. A miss. I noticed he's got an issue with one of his eyes really bad. And I noticed that it's kind of got that issue where it looks like it's drooping, which tells me he had muscle, possibly tendon damage done. That could also be a case for some type of neurological thing. But the thing is, you got to be 100% when you get in there with a guy like Danny Garcia. And if Errol Spence is not 100% and doesn't truly believe that he's the better fighter, I don't think he's going to beat Danny. I don't think, because if you look at his past resume, like I said, with the exception of Sean Porter, but let's be honest, Sean Porter is a tough guy. But Sean Porter is not a world beater. He doesn't possess those monstrous, no look left hooks that Errol's going to face in this situation against Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia has been in there with big punchers like Lucas Matisse, amongst others. So, I mean, like I said, it's going to be an interesting night. I do believe that Errol has the ability, if he's 100% back to Errol Spence, to come back and be superior in this fight. And if Danny loses heart and starts to run out of gas, it could be an easy night for Errol Spence in a decision, but he's not going to get a knockout. That's not the kind of Errol Spence I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay.
What do you think?
Well, no. Yes, he made some good points there. I mean, yeah, Sean Porter's he doesn't really have that thunderous power. He technically he's flawed. The one thing Sean Porter does have is he's just relentless. He's a dog in there.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's a dog in there, and he actually got outdogged by Errol Spence. And we were at that fight, and that's the one thing that stuck out to me was that, wow, man, Errol Spence really knows how to bite down and just keep fighting. I mean, he's conditioned for 12 rounds, but it's been over a year since he fought last, right?
Yeah.
The major contusions and damage to his face. Apparently, he got some of his teeth knocked out, so he's obviously got some false teeth, some crowns put in, or some what do they call it?
Like
implants in his mouth. Yeah. So you're like, I mean, they
never really released the whole level of how badly. I mean, obviously he had to pass neurological stuff, but then again, you got to understand something.
Yeah, he said he went and saw multiple neurologists to get, just to be 100% sure that he was okay, no brain bleeds, nothing of that nature. But
let's be honest, bro.
This is a tough fight coming back after an accident like that. I don't in recent memory, I don't know a fighter that's done that. That's come back after that kind of a personal injury and come back and jumped right into it with a top 5. We feel it's a top 5.
Brook. We saw what happened to Kell Brook.
No, but no personal injury. I mean, something outside of boxing.
No, I know what I'm saying. I mean, Kell Brook coming off of almost exactly what Errol Spence, with the exception to the accident, coming off of a devastating injury where he had to have surgery, long layoff, and you saw what the end result was.
Yeah.
So same situation with Errol Spence. But I think the thing is too is that we got to look at is that Texas doesn't have the most what I would consider the strongest criteria when it comes to passing medical stuff. It's a known fact that a lot of fighters have fought in Texas for the mere reason they couldn't pass the physicals in Nevada and California. So I'm hoping that there's not a reason why. I mean, obviously the fight's been there for whatever reason, but it could be dangerous.
I don't think that's it. I don't think his.
That's what I'm saying. I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping it's not.
I think Texas, the selection of Texas has everything to do with the coronavirus and the fact that he's from Dallas. He's already fought there. Dallas. He's already fought there before. He fought Mikey Garcia there. He fought well, obviously he fought Porter here in LA, but he fought there, and they're like, hey, we can have fans, even if it's limited fans, you know, in that big 100,000 seat stadium. However, they can get I know not that they're going to get that, but even if they get 20,000 people in that stadium, you know, Cowboys aren't doing too good right now in football. So
I don't know. I haven't watched football so long, bro. I couldn't even tell you, dude.
No, but they're not doing so good, and they're like, hey, you know, he's our boy. I mean, he's right there from Dallas, so you know they're going to show up for you know as many as them they can cram into that arena. You know, with the COVID restrictions, they're going to cram in there to see him fight. So I think that's really what it comes down to. I don't think it has anything to do with the medicals. I think he just they want a gate for this fight. They're obviously both going to get paid very well. PBC pays their fighters well, and they need to be able to generate some kind of revenue with some kind of a gate. Can't just be all pay-per-view.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, there's not a whole lot of fights coming up in the near future and stuff. I mean, obviously we got Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce, and you got Daniel Jacobs and Gabriel Rosado, which doesn't really interest me all that much.
Yeah, that's next week. Am I right?
Yeah. They don't have a whole lot. So the schedule's going to kind of thin out here for a little bit and stuff. So, you know, with this fight
it's gonna thin out, and then it picks up again. I can't get the first part of 2021. Oh wait, there's a few fights coming up to finish out the year. Nothing like we've had in the last 4 to 6 weeks. You know,
on a quick thing before we get out of here. I don't know if I read it correctly and stuff, and you'd probably know this better than me. I heard that they're already talking about a return fight with Franco and Maloney. Have you heard anything about it? I
listened to Andrew Maloney's interview this Friday with Randy Gordon and Jerry Cooney on on Sirius XM's boxing.
Great show.
Yeah, great show. I listened to his interview, and they did file a formal protest. They don't anticipate it getting turned over, but they went through the procedure to do that. Robert Garcia was interviewed this week. I think Robert Garcia finally came to his senses, and he had changed his tune, because I think he was reading a lot of the press clippings, and I would say 95, if not higher, percentage of people out there were bashing the entire Franco team. They were bashing Garcia. They were basically saying that, it's one thing to stand up for your fighter, which all trainers should do, but just in the manner in which they did it. So he did an interview this week I read on Boxing Scene, where he said they weren't happy with the thing, with the way it ended either. They felt that, maybe Maloney was going to win the first few rounds, but just like in the first fight, they felt that they were going to come on and stop him late. Like we said, I didn't see it, because if you looked at the weigh-in, he did not look ready for this fight. So anyways, they said that, they would most definitely give a third fight. So I know Maloney called in. He was actually quarantined. He had a hotel in Australia. He had to quarantine there for multiple days before he could even then go reach out and be with his family. So the kid's going to obviously be there in Australia through the holidays, and then maybe at the first part of the year they'll announce the third fight, and then training camp all over again. And of course he's going to probably come back to the States, so make that long flight again, that 15-16 hour flight here to train again. And I just pray to God that nothing funny happens, and I pray to God that the kid can emulate the performance that I thought he was going to give and get that title back.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I'm still brokenhearted about what happened. I mean, it's hard for people to understand, but when you sacrifice as much as this guy sacrificed, knowing the mistakes that he made in the first fight, to come back and have the perfect plan, to paint the perfect picture and do what he was doing and have it ripped away from him, two things are going to happen. Either he's not going to ever be able to get back up to that level again, and Franco finds something within himself to get that victory, or Maloney understands that whatever I did last time, let's double it. And he completely destroys Franco and shows the world who he is, and really stamps himself in the world of boxing.
I do. And I think that's what's going to happen. But like you said, anything can happen. I mean, he might've had the perfect camp, and maybe Franco didn't have the perfect camp. Yeah. Now this one, maybe Franco has the perfect camp, and maybe Maloney doesn't have the perfect camp for, reasons outside of their control. Anything can happen. All kinds of things happen during a boxing training camp.
I don't think
somebody could get sick,
it's weird though, because I went back and watched the first fight again, and Franco really didn't fight any different in this fight than he did in the first fight, where Maloney did. He was a much more aggressive, just his punch selections were different. He set a different tone right from the get-go. So to me, Franco's the one who's got to change things up in order to be relevant in this next fight. Maloney just got to come back and be who he was.
Yeah. Agreed.
You know?
So, well, I guess we'll probably won't hear anything prior to the end of the year, but if we do, it'd be nice if they did, but we'll see.
We'll see what's going to happen. But hey, bro, it's been a good night tonight. We want to thank everybody coming out.
That was about an hour, right? That was about an hour.
Yeah, a little bit over an hour. About 15 minutes over. Who cares? We're not censored by the FCC.
We started at 5. It's 5:59.
All right. Yeah. Okay. My thing says an hour 15, but no big deal. Who cares? But good show tonight, guys. We'll be back again on Monday. We'll see you on Monday.
Tuesday
at 5:00, where we'll discuss once again, the
latest and greatest in boxing.
The latest and greatest of boxing and stuff.
We'll know tomorrow what we're going to talk about on Tuesday. But like I said, we usually try to get to the weekend and see what happens, and then we'll get back on here Tuesday and hopefully bring maybe there's some good news coming out. Hopefully no bad news. Hopefully nothing happens with any of the fights that are upcoming. No more postponements or COVID or any bullshit that keeps happening, like college football. Jesus.
Oh, just real quick before a quick note, what was the deal with the postponement on the Campbell Garcia fight?
Luke Campbell got injured or something like that.
Okay, so it was on the Campbell camps then.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't Ryan Garcia. It was Campbell. He got injured. That fight got pushed back in January. Tony Parker's fight against Junior Fa got pushed back again. God, I hope the Dubois Joe Joyce fight doesn't get pushed back for like the 5th time. But like I said, we'll see. This is a weird time.
I saw that Daniel Dubois opened up as a favorite, and Joe Joyce is pretty peeved off about it. So we'll see what's going to happen.
We'll see. Like I said, I mean, Dubois looks like a tough kid. I mean, from what I've seen, but then again, it's who's he fighting, So
we'll my decision on that. I think Joe Joyce gets his fight, but that's me. I know you've met Joe Joyce. He's a gentleman.
Super nice guy, man. He was so nice. Matchup. Jesus Christ. I'm like, how's this guy a boxer? He should be like.
I like the fact that the two guys that are coming up are facing each other. And, and especially at Joe Joyce's advanced age, he understands that he's kind of got to be on the fast track to where he wants to be. Joe Joyce, if he gets this victory, I didn't think much of him when I first watched him fight, but he's gotten better and better. And like I said, and based on who's on top on the heavyweight division, Joe Joyce could put himself right there.
Hey, these heavyweights, sometimes all it takes is one fight. I mean, these aren't like the lower weight guys where you got a mix of. When you get one big fight, boom, you're right there ready for a title shot. So
sounds good. Why don't you go ahead and close out the night on us, bro?
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. End of the Ring Live. Have a great week, everybody. Have a good evening. Rest of your Sunday, and we will see you guys on Tuesday.
Everybody have a great night. Be safe. Take it easy, my brother.
Take it easy.